It's 4:30. We're going to call this P&Z meeting to order, August the 5th. We don't need to call the roll, so we're good with that. So our first item on the agenda today is approval of minutes from July the 1st, 2021. Has everyone reviewed the minutes?
Yeah, I have one slight correction.
Okay.
Under the call to order, it gives credit to Jones, and I believe you were there, sir.
Yeah, don't give him credit. Okay. Anything else? If it's, we'll make, can I get a motion on that with one correction?
Motion to approve.
With the correction. Okay, motion a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, the minutes are from July 1st are approved with the correction. How about the minutes from July the 15th? Has everyone reviewed those minutes? I did look at those minutes. Anything? Anyone have any corrections? And can we have a motion to approve the minutes from July the 15th?
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion. Can we get a second? We have a second. All in favor, raise your hand. So the minutes pass for July the 15th. And we're going to go to 2A. You want to get us into this, Drew?
Yes, sir. Catch back up. 2A is a preliminary plat for Smith Hill, being 3.74 acres out of that certain tract of land. A parcel comprising of 10.15 acres of land out of the Walter Fosgate Survey number 120, abstract number 138. Within the city of Kerrville, the same property conveyed as 10.165 acres to Scott Schreiner Parker and Ernest Clyde Parker by executor's distribution deed dated the 2nd of March 2021 and recorded in volume number 1782, page number 580 of the official public records of Kerr County, Texas, generally located at 1126 Jackson Road. This is a preliminary plat. This is for the residential subdivision on the right-hand side, kind of the northeastern side of the property. There it is, zoomed in just a little bit. Plat is recommended for approval with the following conditions. Oh, excuse me, there's the concept for the civil infrastructure design, showing that cul-de-sac, location of the water lines, and grading plan. List of conditions for approval. These conditions will be deferred to either the civil plans or the final plat, accordingly to each one. Sanitary sewer easement is required. The fire hydrant spacing will be required as far as their final civil design. It will be required to pay their parkland identification fees. The water tie-in on Jackson Road provided a 3-valve T with anchor. Sanitary sewer tie-ins on Los Cedros. The tie-in connection appears to be a clean-out and not a manhole. That'll need to be resolved in the final civil plans. And then address any KPUB comments based on their design for the electricity. Again, staff recommends a plat for approval with those conditions.
I think the developer is here. Did you need to say anything, Hunter?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Hunter on this? Okay, so if we have no questions, I would entertain a motion to approve the preliminary plat as presented with conditions.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. All right, this preliminary plat is approved with the conditions. Now we're going to go to 2B.
This is the residence at Ridge Hill Apartments, preliminary and final plat. That's the preliminary and final plat establishing a subdivision of land containing 4.76 acres, comprised of one lot of land situated in the James H. Koch Survey number 144, abstract number 95, and the Thomas L. Waddle Survey number 145, abstract number 354, and the said 4.76 acres of land being all of a called 4.75 acre of land conveyed to OPG Ridge Hill Partners LLC, recorded in document number 20-09852 of the official public records of Kerr County, Texas, generally known as 160 and 170 Lehman Drive. The plat is recommended, again, both preliminary and final plat. There are some public water line and sewer line extensions that will be required. They are finalizing those designs with Public Works and Engineering. This is actually a preliminary plat. And here's the final plat. And recommended approval with the following conditions. Should they choose to record the plat prior to installation of the public utilities, they'll be required to provide financial guarantee for any public improvements. Need to resolve their sidewalk installation scope of work with their civil plans, complete their stormwater detention and drainage design, confirm all required easements with city staff or the utility company serving the development, and respond to any outstanding civil improvement plan comments. Provide a note on the plat stating that parkland fees will be paid with the building permit. Of course, the final plat should be signed and sealed by the surveyor. Wastewater main needs to extend across the full frontage of the project. Water service and the fire flow will need to be resolved between the developer, Aqua Texas, Kerrville Public Works, and the fire marshal's office, and address any design issues with K-Pub. This project is within Aqua Texas water CCN. Aqua Texas cannot provide adequate fire flow service, so they're getting fire flow service from the city of Kerrville, and most likely domestic service from Aqua Texas, unless they can get out of that obligation with Aqua Texas. So they'll be coordinating that with our Public Works and engineers. Staff recommends approval with those conditions.
Is there someone here for this?
Don't believe so.
No?
This was recent zone case and annexation. Has been finalized, the annexation with city council. So just moving their next step to the plat. They're in the process of finalizing their building and civil design, and so looking to pull building permits in the next month or two.
So the water service, the domestic water service provided by Aquatex, that's gonna require some on-site improvements, lines and things like that?
That's up to Aqua Texas. I know they've started a conversation to be removed from Aqua Texas
Uh-huh.
CCN, so that the city of Kerrville can provide domestic service. If they do that, of course, we'll work with them on their civil design to provide domestic and fire service. But otherwise, yes, they'll have to go through Aqua Texas water line extension process, whatever that is.
Okay, so approval of the preliminary and final plat is still subject to you guys reviewing and making sure that all this has sufficient domestic water?
All of these conditions will be tied to the civil design, and with that dual water service in question, they want to be able to get working on that and have the plat ready to go moving forward.
Does anybody have any questions? I guess the questions would be for Drew.
For another day, really, but Aquatech comes down that far. I mean, does it do rim rock and all that, or?
Yes,
I mean, they have their.
I believe they actually service. Let's see. I believe they actually service about half of this block, and then comes up and then back up the hillside behind them. Yes, sir.
Any other questions, guys?
So if they're obligated, are they obligated to use Aquatest, the Aqua for their water domestic service? If they're
Yes.
being annexed into the city, they're still
That's correct.
under their service area.
Yeah, those service areas do not change with city annexation.
Okay.
Unless agreed upon, obviously.
So is the obligation to actually use the water is just the obligation to pay,
Aqua Texas
assuming
has-
that
yeah,
they
Aqua
wanted the
Texas has
city?
the first right to serve.
Okay.
So Aqua Texas can release them if they choose to. And then since they are in the city limits, we would have to agree to take them on.
Anything else? All right. It's been annexed already. If there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the preliminary plats and final plats for this, subject to the conditions.
I will make that motion.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
We have a second. So we have a motion, a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. All right, this preliminary and final plat are approved subject to conditions attached. We'll go to 2C, Drew.
This is the Hunter Hills subdivision final plat. This is the northwest side of the property. This is the final plat, preliminary plat came in about a month ago. Staff recommends approval of this with the two conditions. Confirm all required easements with city staff and utility companies. I'll note there is a off plat sewer easement right here that has been fully executed and ready for recording. That'll be referenced on this plat with the final version. And then of course, final plat signed and sealed. Staff recommends approval.
Any questions for Hunter here on this one, guys? This is the church, correct?
Yes.
Fixing to ask what's gonna go there.
Again?
I was fixing to ask what's gonna go there.
Yeah, it's a church. If there are no questions,
I'll make a motion to approve the final plat as presented.
a motion and a second, all in favor, raise your hand. This final plat is approved. Now we're gonna go to 2D.
The final plat of the Meeker Road subdivision, Unit 1, containing a total of 1.035 acres of land lying in the Samuel Wallace Survey number 112, page 360, Kerr County, Texas. Said 1.035 acre tract being a portion of a 7.47 acre tract of land as described in special warranty deed to 2J Page Development LLC, Texas Limited Liability Company, dated February 7th, 2020, and recorded in document number 20-01299, official public records of Kerr County, Texas. More commonly known as lots 1 through 3 and lots 13 through 16 of the approved Meeker subdivision preliminary plat. These 7 lots front Meeker Road. You can see there's a space between lots 3 and 4 for the future cul-de-sac that goes up into that property. Closer view of those lots. Again, these front Meeker Road. And staff recommends approval with the following conditions. They provide their drainage plan to show how the stormwater will flow around lots 14 through 16. And due to the number of taps, this condition we've actually worked through already based on what you have drafted. The number of taps they'll be requesting, City of Kerrville will be installing those taps. And if there's any significant requirements, that'll be incorporated into next year's paving maintenance. So not a requirement for the developer since it is an existing street and an existing sewer line. And of course, final plat should be signed and sealed.
Is there someone here from this?
Yes.
Is there any questions from you guys on this plat, final plat?
So aside from the remainder of that, or sorry, without the 50-foot gap between lots 3 and 13, is the remainder of that tract landlocked?
No, it actually goes all the
It
way
does.
up to that Dogwood. Yes. All the way up to Dogwood. I don't know if I have that in the aerial. As Poplar carries down to the southeast, intersects with Dogwood back here, and there's actually a loop of streets back there. So I have lots coming up this cul-de-sac. You can see the addresses on the aerial there, kind of showing the outline of the cul-de-sac.
Mhm.
Those lots will back up to the lots on Dogwood at the top of the hill.
So you'll have lots backing up to each other facing streets on both sides?
That's correct.
Anything else? Any other questions? Okay, if there's no questions, I'll entertain a motion on this final plat of Meeker Road subdivision, Unit 1. Do you have any questions, David?
No, I didn't.
I will make a motion to approve with the
All right, we have
conditions.
a motion to approve, and we have a second. All in favor, raise your hand. All right, this final plat
Jog along.
is approved. We're gonna go into our public hearing considerations, and the first one that we have up, 3A, conditional use permit for a short-term rental. Go ahead, Drew.
It's a resolution to allow a conditional use permit for a short-term rental unit on Lot 1 and part of Lot 2, Block 17, Westland Place Edition, more commonly known as 414 West Water Street. There are 27 letters mailed out on July 22nd, advertised in the Kerrville Daily Times July 15th. that we did have, just this week, we had two notices coming in favor. I know talked to the commission about the number of short-term rental units we have in town. Many of those grandfathered prior to the 2019 zoning code, specifically addressing a conditional use permit for short-term rentals. Our staff has been working on mapping those that we know about through finance department on their hotel occupancy tax accounts and those with the conditional use permits. So the green are the grandfathered short-term rental units. The red have been approved by conditional use permit. And you see the three blue ones are the proposed cases today. So we do have them spread out pretty evenly across the city. Quite a few, I think, again, total's right around 60, 61 units right now.
The grandfathered units are subject to different guidelines than these?
Yes, they're grandfathered as is, since the previous zoning code did not have any specific requirements for them.
Okay.
They are still required to pay their hotel occupancy tax, but there's the additional parking requirements and the conditions that we apply to the CUPs that they are not subject to. That's correct.
Is there a threshold where they stop being a short-term rental? And if so, they lose their grandfathered?
If they are not utilized as a short-term rental unit for more than a year, then they would lose their grandfathered status.
They could switch back to being a residential,
Correct.
and that would be in the end code probably, and it wouldn't be a
Yes.
transition. But then if they wanted to come back as a short-term rental, they'd have to go back through the process.
That is correct.
What if the property's sold?
Runs with the land
Okay.
as long as there's no gap in use.
Well, this is a very effective and excellent map. What's the source of that? Where'd that come from?
Ariel, our intern.
Oh,
Of
Working on
course,
this.
of course.
oh yeah. Oh, that's the one that went to Texas A&M, right? Yeah, okay.
He knew Ariel, he knew
Clearing it out.
he knew the answer to that question before he asked it, so in tracking these things, if they're being used as a short-term rental, how does the city, because of the hotel occupancy tax pay?
So our finance department hires a firm that does a kind of review online. Off the top of my head, I don't know if that's monthly or quarterly that they do their search. But they basically go through and scrub all the sites that they can and find
Mhm.
any short-term rental, whether it's Airbnb, VRBO, or one of the multiple sites that are out there now, to estimate how much property tax they owe based on the number of rentals they've had. Of course, pinpoint location as best they can. Our finance department then follows up with the owner to get those tax accounts billed. If we find a new one that has not been used prior to 2019, code enforcement would be involved, and they'd still be required to go through this process. So it's right now the only new ones that have come up through that kind of scrubbing process. They've been in the ETJ, so we haven't had any come in after the fact for the CUP based on those findings.
So if you have grandfathered in short-term rentals and over the course of 12 months, they've not paid any hotel occupancy tax, you assume they've not been used as a short-term rental?
Right.
And at that point, they are no longer have that.
So at that point, we would contact the owner to see if they have any records of use during that time. If so, then they need to update their occupancy tax.
It's a double-edged sword.
It is. If they have not used it, then we'll take that off the list as being a grandfathered use,
Okay.
and it would cease to be a short-term rental.
Do you have any sort of how many times they have to be, like IRS rules on
I do
second
not-
homes?
That I do not. I'm not sure.
Is this list available to the public, or is this currently only in graphic form?
I'd have to check for open records requests, but can look into that.
So I'm assuming there is someone here for this 414 Water Street.
Yes. If you'll turn it over to the applicant, and then I'll have my full report
Yeah.
following that, and we'll go open the public hearing.
So we're gonna open the public hearing at 4:50 on 414 Water Street. Go ahead.
I'm Celeste and this is Chris.
Celeste and Chris Barker, and we're not really sure how this works, but we were just here to really answer questions, or if there was any.
What's your, do you live here in Kerrville?
Yes, we live actually. Well, we
What's
live
your
a block
address?
away.
What's your address? Where do you live?
601 Elm.
So you're pretty close.
We're real close. Yeah, we walk there mostly.
Okay.
Unless we have a trailer.
Well, we do have some speakers during the public hearing. Drew, you have a report. I have a question. I looked at this. How many bedrooms is this?
It's a 2-bedroom.
2-bedroom?
Yes.
And it has sufficient parking? That was my question.
It has it's a 2-car garage and then 2 parking spots in front of the garage as well.
Okay, so
So there's 4 off-street parking spots.
okay, and this is a 2-bedroom.
Yeah, the 2 bedrooms,
Okay.
that'll be
That was my question. Thank
require
you.
3 parking spaces at a minimum.
So the garage is considered parking spaces?
Yes.
Okay. You want to go ahead, Drew, and then we'll see
Yeah,
if we
I'll
have
go ahead and
any
go through my
questions.
report before the rest of the public hearing. The area and then surrounding neighborhood are all zoned R1A. Subject property, since there is no change in the base zoning, is consistent with the Kerrville 2050 comprehensive plan. Again, it is located on a residential street. There is no traffic impact anticipated. Parking is required 1 space per bedroom plus 1 for any off-site manager. So with the 2-bedroom, required 3 spaces. As they've stated, they have 4 parking spaces available, which means the garage could not be enclosed, so that it is available for customer parking. Here's the adjacent short-term rentals in the neighborhood. Here's their survey showing the garage and the driveway. And this is the standard list of conditions that we've been working with for a short-term rental. Required guest notification, required to pay occupancy taxes as per Chapter 94. Should they choose to sign the property, that signage requirement is consistent with the home occupation. Minimum off-street parking. Maximum occupancy is 10 guests. The applicant can certainly be more restricted, but that's the maximum based on city standards and building codes. And then any other zoning requirements would apply.
No letters in opposition?
We had 2 emails written in favor, but no letters written in opposition.
Before we get to the speakers, any questions for the owners, guys? So I've got 4 speaker request forms here. I assume you guys are here to speak for this? Is that why you're here?
Yes, sir.
So is it okay if we pick one out of the 4 of you guys and tell us why everyone's for it? Not that I don't want to listen to you speak, but there is no
We
opposition.
can be quick, but we might have different things to say. So.
Okay. Russell, you get to come up first, buddy.
All right, sounds good. My name is Russell Nemke. I live at 515 Elm Street. I'm actually the former owner of this house. And since the time that I sold it, I think there's actually 2 short-term rentals on this block. But I think there's only one showing, which is right down the street. Yeah. I'm in favor for it because I lived there. I didn't do much work to this house. It automatically, after I sold it, looks great. I mean, they're working on it. They're trying to make it look as best they can. It makes the neighborhood look really nice. And the other 2 houses that are short-term rentals on this block also look very nice. So I think it helps the neighborhood. It's right next to a lot of these other businesses right down the street. So I'm all for it. I think it's a great thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, and people don't want to stay in hotels anymore either. So that's another thing in this town that we got to work on. Thank you.
Mr. Walker.
My name is Lawrence Walker. I live at 406 Westwater, just a house away. Probably the old guy on the whole street now. The house that I live in was bought by my grandparents in 1955. It's still owned by my ancient parents in Fort Worth. But I've been there for 24 years, and the neighborhood has changed a good bit. It is sort of transitional no matter what. I'm in favor of my neighbors. I like the neighbors who own the CUPs and the short-term rentals. I also have 2 halfway houses next to me and across the street. I find it reasonable I'm a good neighbor to have for them because I'm an accepting person of the variety there. So what I realize that's happening on Westwater is that it is a sort of a hodgepodge, but I like it. But I have to say one thing, that the problem is not traffic for any of these houses, but Water Street, as you know, is a wide through street that goes to Jackson. It is the speed of the traffic that needs to be worked with. I'm not concerned at all about how these houses turn out in short-term rentals. I think it's a fine thing. But I would like to make that note about the speed of Water Street traffic. Thank you.
Did you notice that when he said his ancient parents, he looked at you and me, David?
I will. Gotta get them on the record.
Chris Barker.
That's actually me. I didn't know if I needed one
Okay.
or not, so
Okay, see.
I already said something.
Fine, then we're good to go here. So, if we don't have any other comments, I'd like to say we appreciate you guys, investing in Kerrville and wanting to, be a part of the community, so thank you. Is there any other? So if there's no other comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the conditional use permit. So we have a motion to approve.
Second?
We have a second. All in favor, raise your hand. Conditional use permit for 414 Water Street passes, and thank you. We're gonna go to 3B.
Chairman, what time is the public hearing?
Let me close the public hearing at 4:56. And now we're gonna go to 3B. Go ahead, Drew.
3B is a resolution to allow a conditional use permit for a short-term rental unit on part of Lot 11, Block 12, Fairway Edition, more commonly known as 604 East Shady. And here's that one. The proposed unit is up on your top left-hand corner. Here's Guadalupe Street. We do have several existing in the neighborhood. We have a handful of approved conditional use permits in this neighborhood. They are just down the street from Guadalupe or Lowry Park Trailhead. Of course, just a few blocks from access to downtown on the other side of the creek. I can go through my full report now or after the applicant.
We have no speakers on this one, so why don't you go ahead and do that, Drew, and then we'll open the public hearing.
Also had 27 letters mailed out on July 22nd, advertised on July 15th, Daily Times. This area also is predominantly zoned R1A. As the commission recalls, along Guadalupe Street, there are some areas zoned R3 and R2, but on both sides of East Shady and to the north, east and west is R1A. On a residential street, there should be no impact on traffic expected. The parking is one per bedroom and one for the off-site manager.
Did you say one bedroom, Drew?
Parking space is one per bedroom.
And how many bedrooms?
I believe this is a 3-bedroom. Steve, do you recall on this one? 3-bedroom. So 3-bedroom, they be required 4 spaces. They may have to expand the driveway, and we'll work with the applicant on that. as far as-
I drove by and looked at it, and I didn't see 4 parking spaces.
Yeah, it's two-car driveway. I believe there's a 1-car garage. If it's open and accessible, of course, they'd be required the 4 parking spaces total. So we will work with the applicant before they start operating to make sure we follow up to see if there is parking installed. We had no comments written, at least as far as written in comments, and the standard conditions recommended for approval.
I have no speaker request forms. Is there anyone here that needs to speak on this before we move forward? I'll open and close the public hearing, but I have a question for you. Should we approve this conditional use permit subject to sufficient parking, or does it limit the amount of guests they can put in there if they only have 3 parking spaces?
It would be subject to meeting the parking requirement.
Okay.
So again, staff will work with them to verify that is completed.
You got something?
And there's no one here that the owner or have done anything other than this plat, right? So is it at fair on staff to, you know, hold their feet to the fire and then are they gonna be coming back to us if they have a plat or if you have another issue with it, or you just?
So we'll work with them. It is a requirement by code, so without those parking spaces, they cannot legally operate the short-term rental. As a condition from the commission, that would just reinforce that parking requirement.
Have you met with the owners?
I have not, Steve met with the owners.
Are they local, Steve? Are the owners local? Okay. It's a little bit more comforting to me when we have someone looking for a conditional use permit to have the owners here that we can speak to them like the ones before, like Kim has done, and they've spoken to the neighbors and they've given them information and everything, and we're going in pretty blind here with this. So my recommendation would be to try to have somebody here if you're looking for a conditional use permit.
We'll be sure to pass that along.
Any other questions or comments before I open the public hearing? Okay, I'm gonna open the public hearing at 5:01. We'll close the public hearing 5:01 since there's no one here to speak. My comment on this is I have reservations about approving this without having the parking done, nor meeting with the owners. That would be.
So Drew, you would not issue the CUP until parking had been confirmed?
We have a couple that have not, that proposed parking, and we are in the process of coming up with a system to go back and actually confirm that parking. I've had a couple comments, not any specific property, but that there have been a couple conditional use permits that have not installed the additional parking. So we're gonna be going through and checking on all of them actually.
But they're already operating as a.
But they are operating, so we will be confirming that. In kind of other contexts, there are areas zoned for multifamily or the residential transitional. The short-term rental is allowed by right, so they don't have to come before the board for a conditional use permit. They're still required that additional parking. So we've got some review on some of those other ones that we need to check up on.
We would never see.
Exactly.
But in this particular case, they're required to get the conditional use permit to operate as a short-term rental?
Yes, because it's zoned R1A, they are required.
Any other comments? Well, I'll accept a motion to approve this short-term rental for 604 East Shady Street, if there is one.
If we decline it tonight, can they come back and apply again?
Not within 12 months. And it's not a burden on staff, and that's part of our job to go back and check to make sure they do comply with those conditions.
Okay.
So don't feel like it's a burden on us, and that is part of our requirement to go back and confirm those.
Yeah,
If
I
they
understand.
can't meet the parking, the conditional use permit would be voided anyway,
Okay, that was
and
my
they could
question.
not operate.
Okay.
I'm more
Yeah.
comfortable in that.
Okay.
Okay, so is there a motion?
I'll make a motion based on that to approve the CUP.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? All right, we're gonna move on to 3C. Conditional use permit for 1220 Aranza Street.
Resolution to allow a conditional use permit for a short-term rental unit on part of Lot 4, Block 81, J.A. Tybee Edition, more commonly known as 1220 Aransas. Now we do have a few speakers here and the applicants here. Let the applicants speak first, and then I'll go into my report, and then we can open the public hearing.
You wanna let them speak before we open the public hearing, or you, okay? Mr. The owner?
Hi, I'm Sarah Lewis. This is my husband Greg. We own it and we are here to answer any questions basically.
And you live where?
We live at 705 Overhill.
It looks very nice. I went and took a look at it.
It's a tiny house.
It is a tiny house.
Yeah. And it was in progress. And we had been looking for a house to do a short-term rental in, and we saw this, tiny house being worked on and just kind of jumped on it while it was in progress. And one thing I personally liked about it was that it wasn't an existing home that, you know, that could have been like a forever home for someone really, unless they just really want that tiny house life. So,
Is it 2 bedrooms?
one.
1 bedroom. All right.
It's 288 total square feet.
One.
That's a tiny house.
It is. It feels bigger inside.
It's very well done. It looks very nice. You guys
Thanks.
did a great job.
Just out of curiosity, what kind of foundation, is that just moved in on wheels and set in, or?
No, it was built on site, so I mean it's on
Okay.
construction, but on cinder blocks.
Yeah, it's
strapping in.
Yeah.
The guy that built it built another tiny house that we lost out on, and he was like, "Oh, I've learned a lot from this tiny house," so he built this one and kind of corrected some of the. He fine tuned it. So.
Anything else?
Is there a paid parking? How's the parking?
I have a picture.
It has parking.
There is parking. There's a little gravel lot. And
Okay.
this is my car in it with a room for another car, and then cars behind too.
Yeah, I drove and take a look at it, Dave. It's
That's more than enough time.
Just only needs one parking.
yeah, it needs one, but it's nice. It's very well done. So, if no one has any other questions, we'll open up the public hearing at 5:06. And I have 2 cards here. Steve VanPatten.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. My name is Steve VanPatten. First of all, I want to thank you for being here and allowing me to speak. My brother and I own 7 of the properties within the 200-foot radius that's in question here next to the applicants. We also own a bunch of additional residential properties in the neighborhood. But anyway, these 7 properties, 3 of which directly adjoin the applicant's property, they represent, the best of my guess looking at this, a little over a third of all the applicants that are, or all the residences within the 200-foot area. So we're basically speaking for about a third of the people here, I guess, the 2 of us. As a point of information, my disabled daughter, she has a house that's about 350 feet from here. My personal residence is about 352 feet from here. So they're not on the list, but I do live at 416 Ross, and my daughter lives right behind me. I have 2 houses there. I also own the property at 404 and another lot adjoining that. But I'd like to state this is a real quiet family neighborhood. It's many of our tenants lived on these properties for a number of years. We've got one in particular that directly adjoins the applicant's property that has been there for about 15 years. She's an elderly lady, her and her husband, and they've been in that one little place for 15 years. Most of our tenants are long-term residents, as well as most of the neighborhood. It's not that I'm against what the applicant is trying to do. I just don't think it fits this neighborhood. It's not a transient neighborhood. And I guess speaking with the majority of our tenants, and I kind of asked their opinions on stuff. What do you think about having this in here? They moved into that neighborhood because it is a quiet family neighborhood, and we kind of like to keep it that way. We do a background check on all of our tenants, and it's very, very thorough. My brother and I have a bunch of rental properties here in town, and we screen out any sex offenders, possible dangerous felons, or the like. And this is just to make sure that we're bringing in good, solid neighbors into that neighborhood, and we do that with all of our stuff here. I don't really feel that short-term transit rentals fall in the same classification as what we've got in long-term rentals. I mean, I just don't think it fits. I mean, it fits more into the hotels, motels, the Airbnbs, and it's temporary short-term housing. There's really not a way to do the kind of background checks, or need to do the kind of background checks that we do for bringing in permanent people into that neighborhood. Even though they are a rental on a month-to-month, but they are leased. They're leased on a yearly basis and extend on. I'm kind of concerned, we're kind of concerned of what this is gonna bring into our neighborhood. You know, it's gonna attract maybe a larger party element, it's gonna be loud, you know, that it could bring, that nobody's there to really control or handle. And I get it, I mean, if I'm going on vacation, I wanna be able to hoot and holler and have a good time too. But I just don't think that, we don't want to see that I don't think it fits this neighborhood. I really don't. So we'd gladly welcome the applicants to join my brother and I and other landlords in the area and bring this thing in as a permanent long-term rental. Because Lord, we need them in the area. We really do. We need them all over Kirkville. We're short that type of housing. But again, this doesn't fit that type of that, you know, it just doesn't fit that. So anyway, please consider, put yourself in this kind of position. Would you want this next door to your grandmother or my disabled daughter or your disabled daughter and having that living next door to you? So you got people coming in and out every night that are different on a short-term basis. And if you think the way I do, please join me and vote this down. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. You wish to speak, sir?
Yeah, I do. My name is Jim VanPatten. Nice to see all your commissioners. I've never been here before. It's very rare that I'll ever contest or protest or come up to anything. I'm against this. I also would like to back up and say it is not just because it's a short-term rental. The last two that you've had, I have properties within inches of each of them. You haven't heard me complain. There is an area for it. It is a demand for it. I understand some places by the river, wonderful places to have it. There are areas in the town that, like I said, there is a demand. This particular neighborhood, exactly like my brother had said, in addition to that, we have, in addition to the 7 that we have within 200 feet, the residents there, we have 9 within a block. In addition to that, we have 11 within 2 blocks. In addition to that, we have 21 residences within 10 blocks. In addition to that, within a mile and a half, I have the tax receipts for over 100 single-family residences that we own in that area. I'm protesting this on behalf of all of this. I think that the neighbors that we have there, we do work very hard. We have 2 small houses in the area there that we kept as single-family residents rather than going to a B&B, and both of them are very small, exactly like that. Very, very small, very cute properties. We knew that the income would be greater. That being said, I'd rather just put it up and say, I'm against it completely. My brother touched everything else that was pretty well there. I'd like to have it be known on my behalf that I'm against it also.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
I'd like to address some of their comments. They're talking about that it's not a through neighborhood. The access to this house is on Aransas itself, not through like Ross or Jefferson or any of the other more neighborhoody streets. There's no other houses within that block on Aransas that have access on Aransas, so it is kind of set apart from the other houses in the area. I also wanted to add that we had a privacy fence put in, so it's 6 feet, privacy fence. Most of the other fence in the area is chain link, so we kind of wanted to insulate it from the other houses in the area. We're going to have a max amount of 2 people allowed in the house at a time, or to rent it at a time, and we're going to have a no party rule. I'm going to give my phone number to everybody in the area, and then if they have issues, they can call me directly, like in case there is noise coming from there that should not be there. We're not intending this to be like a party house. It's, it's for like a couple to come and then walk to downtown because it's half a mile, or walk to Schreiner because it's half a mile, or walk a couple blocks to the river trail. This is not intended to be like a bachelorette party type of house. And then we're also, going to try and, for our own benefit, we only want people that are highly rated. We don't want, schlubs coming in and wrecking it. So anyway, I just wanted to respond to some of those.
Thank you.
If I might ask you a question, what kind of arrangement do you have on booking your facility?
We're going to use Airbnb.
Okay, and they do some character checking, or?
Yeah, they can rate us and we can rate them, and everywhere they've gone can rate them as well. So, we'll be looking at ratings.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Gentlemen, you guys own all the homes. You have tenants in the homes. Did you receive any notices, any letters or anything from the tenants in reference to
Notices
this?
go to the property owner.
Property owners, okay. That was my question.
And the limit?
Can I have one more comment?
It's a-
Sorry, there was a neighbor who, this wasn't on the record, but we met one of the next door neighbors and he was in favor of this. I mean, I know it's just
Sure.
word of mouth, but he was excited, so.
So with the one bedroom, the maximum number of people,
From a building code standpoint, it's still 10. That's for any structure.
You're not gonna
Obviously,
get
the
10.
applicant, the applicant can put a more restrictive number on that, so they can restrict it to 2. It's still required 2 parking spaces, based on the bedroom count, 1 bedroom plus the off-site manager. As you saw in the photo, they have adequate room for at least 2, if not 3 parking spaces.
Any other questions? Have you, Jim, have you guys met the couple that owns it?
Yes, just briefly when they
Just
came on
now?
in here. They had not got with us prior.
Okay.
Well, we were aware that there were rentals.
Yeah, we talked to the one, I guess that would be to the west, you know, just mowing the lawn, talking to them. The one directly behind us, that's the land that was,
Go ahead and come up to the microphone. Sorry.
the one behind us was the one that was subdivided to actually make this a lot.
Correct.
So I assume they kind of was okay with the neighbor.
No, the one behind us is us. That's us. We're directly behind you.
No, okay.
Yeah, and it was not subdivided.
The land,
It's not subdivided from us. We not saw that less than the last 15 years.
oh, from when we bought it, we understood that they had to replot
Sorry.
that land.
Just
They
real quick,
replatted the lot because of the street.
Mr. VanPatten owns this one. This is the property that you purchased it from. That was
Oh.
subdivided.
Yes, I mean, we bought it after
Yeah.
it was all done. I just, looking at the lot sizes, I assumed that was what it
And
was.
That side of the block, just a second. This side of the block was obviously changed when Aransas came through. That's why it's only a portion of the lot. Previously, this property owner owned that property.
Okay,
And so they did split those deeds.
I see.
Back
Okay.
to the original lot configuration. So the VanPattens are, I guess it depends on which way you're looking behind you. VanPattens on this property. This is the one that it was subdivided off of.
I got you.
We also own the property at 309 Ross, and the other one at 1206, is it? 1205?
Yeah.
1205.
But then on the east side, partly because we're trying to get Spectrum to get service, but we've also left several notes on that door and they haven't called or responded or so. We try to contact some people.
Here's that map showing the adjacent existing units. Again, the red is approved with the conditional use permit. The green are existing prior to October 2019.
Put that map back up, Drew.
Sorry.
Please, thanks. So the blue is the one that we're considering right here?
The blue is the one for consideration today.
Okay.
And as you can see, there's none else, there's no others in the neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make one other comment. If where that property is, if this would have been to 203 feet, you would also have a daycare that would be sitting here. This is really a very, very family oriented place that really does not need to have additional transient neighbors in that spot. That's why I didn't complain to the other areas that were there. It is life goes on. We all need to have stuff. This is very unique on this application. It would have been really nice maybe if we'd have been contacted, I don't know, maybe prior to them purchasing it. Like I said, we would love to have them. If they would like to have as a single family residence in there, we have a house smaller than that rents. Very good prices, it stays rent solid. There is a demand. But we just say nay when it comes to this on that particular property.
Well, Guess we have all the information we need, unless anyone else has anything to say. So what is the zoning there, Drew?
It's zoned R1A. Sorry, yes, R1A. Sorry, double check my notes here. And to the west, there's some RT and R3 multifamily on the other side of Aransas. Of course, the parking we talked about, it is on an existing residential street, and the standard conditions part of that recommendation.
Can I say something?
Jim, do you guys, any of your properties that you have front Aransas? Any of the properties that you own front Aransas Street
I have one.
in this area right here?
I have one 2 doors down that backs up to Aransas Street. If I change my address around the other way, it faces Jefferson.
Access is on Jefferson and in and out's on Jefferson.
Jefferson, the backyard is on Aransas.
Okay, but the back of the house is, the front of the house is on Jefferson.
The front of the house is on Jefferson, correct?
But you don't own 312, Ross.
I do not.
Someone wanted to say something?
Good.
You good? Careful what you wish for. Sure, ma'am.
Kimberly Richards, 609 Earl Garrett. Just want to encourage you once again, rather than assuming there's going to be a problem, that you approve it. And if there is a problem, you deal with the problem. And if it is not complied with, then you take the conditional use away. But I hate to see people get punished on the front when nothing has happened. So just thought.
Thank you. So that brings up an interesting point. If there is issues that the owners do not immediately take care of, does the city have any recourse to remove the conditional use permit?
It could be brought back to city council if there were problems egregious enough. Of course, any of your standard code enforcement would go through municipal court if there were any issues there. If there's any violations of the conditions or the zoning code approval, those go to municipal court. Again, up to the judge at that point of what course of action to take. From a code enforcement standpoint, the only complaint we've had on a short-term rental was one that was not approved, had not applied for a conditional use permit, and it was not approved. They started operating before they went through the process. We are in the process of working with PD to verify the list of addresses that we are aware of the short-term rentals with any kind of general noise complaints, weekend complaints. Obviously, code enforcement wouldn't be getting those, but we're in the process of working with PD to verify that as well, to see if we have other complaints that Development Services is not aware of, but PD may have handled after hours. But we don't have that report completed yet.
Okay.
So.
I guess we have all the information we can use to either. Go ahead.
Yeah, one more, I'm sorry. All right.
No, you're good.
So the permit to build the structure, you bought it already built in place.
Mhm.
And that was permitted as a
Single family home.
I don't think anything's permitted as a conditional, as a short-term rental.
Yeah,
I'm trying to get clarity.
yeah. So it's permitted as a single family home, similar to the ones that we've had that are converting to a short-term rental. To get a permit specifically for the short-term rental, they'd already have to have the conditional use permit. But the structure doesn't change, so the building permit process doesn't change.
Okay, all right.
So we wanted to make our offer contingent on approval, but the seller was not interested in that.
Seller was a builder? Developer?
Yeah, I think he's like a tiny home builder. This was like his 4th or 5th one. This is a new thing for him.
mean, I look at this and I look at the neighborhood and I understand the properties that the Patton's own. But this appears to me to be a unique property because it fronts Aranza Street and that's the access in and out. It really doesn't,
For me, it's the size and that it's only 2 people at a time does not pose. Now, if this was a 3 or 4 bedroom home, I think that would probably be problematic in my mind. But a 2 bedroom, I'm sorry, a 1 bedroom, 288 square feet, there's not going to be any hooping and hollering going on.
You know, the owners have put up a privacy fence.
Yeah.
They're trying to shield it from the neighborhood.
Put the location, the map up that shows the number. Yeah.
well, then let's consider this. Guess I need to close the public hearing. I'll close the public hearing at 5:25. We have all the information. We've heard from the adjacent property owners. Is there a motion to approve the conditional use permit for 1220 Aranza Street?
I will make that motion.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passes. We're going to move on to 3D. The zoning change, Drew.
Just note for the record, Mr. Patterson is recusing on this one. There you go. Zone change for a planned development district amendment. This is an ordinance to amend the zoning and land use table for the planned development district created by ordinance 2019-14, located on a 58.74 acre tract of land, more commonly known as lots 1 through 15 and lots 900 through 903, the landing subdivision, generally located between the 1000 and 1200 block of Thompson Drive. With that, I'll actually turn it over to the applicant to give an introduction to the update.
I guess that's that speaker right here, Justin McDonald.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
80 character.
Justin McDonald, 1219 Virginia. This is a pretty simple change. We're just requesting an amendment to our PD ordinance. As you can see on the screen here, lots, as Drew mentioned, 5, 11, 12, 13. I think 13 was maybe already in that. Regardless, we're taking some of the existing lots that we had set up initially as a C3 use, and we're requesting to add R3, including townhomes, to those uses. It's pretty simple rationale. When we went for this PD in 2019, nobody had heard of COVID. Nobody thought that the demand for restaurants, bars, entertainment venues, and so on would go, almost to zero for a while. And a lot of those small businesses are still recovering, and so they're not in an expansionary mode at this point. And at the same time, it's since come to light the city of Kerrville, as you know, has a drastic shortage of affordable housing. We are looking at building townhomes on the majority of these lots that we hope to be able to put out for somewhere around $300,000 to $350,000 for sale. Certainly not low income by any means, but anytime you add housing stock and what I like to refer as that missing middle, you take a lot of pressure off of the overall housing economy. So that's where we are. We're not requesting to make any other amendments. We're not requesting to delete the height restrictions, for example, that we voluntarily put on the lots that are along that side, that western side of the property. And we're still planning on those townhomes to be no more than 2 stories. So with that, I guess I can entertain any questions that you might have.
Anybody have any questions before we open the public hearing? I don't have anybody been signed up to speak. Well, I'm going to open the public hearing at 5:29. And being that there's no one to speak, I'm gonna close it at 5:29.
We got a speaker.
Oh, we do, I'm sorry. Then I'm gonna reopen the public hearing at 5:29.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
ma'am.
I'm Debbie Nielsen. I'm owner of 1526 Knapp Road. And I've wanted the development from day one, but I still need access. We always have had the access, even the owners that had the property prior to us in 75, to go down the road by the river. And I see this, the zoning, if you go back to the lot number 13 taken up where the road was going to go and the river trail there. And that's my only concern, is we have no way to get out out of our property without going down that road with a trailer or as an old person or a young teenager. So that's been our concern only from day one, and hopefully we can work something out. But as it stands, I don't want to cover up lot 13 with townhouses until we have the road issue worked where we can get out of our property.
So currently, is your property access from Thompson?
Yes. Well, we opened it up when the flood came and the road was closed down below. That right there where he's got the pointer had always been chain closed. Nobody ever used it because the traffic comes over that hill 50, 60 miles an hour. There's no vision to the left to come in. But we did open up that property when we had the flooding down below there and put a gate in. And so when you come up Thompson and take a right, you can get in. But going out, it's impossible to go out, and especially going out with the trailer. You can't go out with a trailer on behind you. We haul hay. My husband lost his leg 4 years ago, so we have a big issue of pulling out onto that road. 90% of the time we all go down through the river. So that's our concern, is having no way to get out there. And I know they've been real good, like they worked with the neighbors on, I think, another gate going in, but we haven't had that opportunity yet.
Sure,
So-
can I address that? Yes. Can I come up to your podium so I use the pointer? Yep. How do I do this?
For the pointer,
Yeah. Okay. So, I'm Steve Schulte, General Counsel for McDonald Companies. Right here where I have the pointer, this is Miss Nielsen's property right here. Right now, she has two ways to access her property. Right here, with the road, and then she can continue down the road on their side of the property and go down Knapp Road, right here, and then come out James Road right there. So if, and we've already provided for her access, so if and when there's been talk about abandoning Knapp Road because it's a city road and it's long-term plan is the city would like to extend the river trail. If that ever goes away, then her access will be right here where it is right now. Plus, can we go back
We
to
can't
the
get
other?
out that way. That's,
Well, let me finish the next, right here. So her property is over here. She comes out right here. This right here is a dedicated easement. It's on the plat for her use. So if Knapp Road goes away, which is down here, she will connect right here in a dedicated easement, and her other way of getting out is through here. Nothing we're doing today changes any of that.
Right.
So she's already been provided for an access if in the future Knapp Road is abandoned.
But the illustration you have here, is the teal court's a dead end or a?
It's a public street and it dead ends right now because there's no need to access.
Because
There's
of
a
Knapp.
dedicated easement to these two properties. One of them, J.E. Johnson is right here and Miss Nielsen is right here. These are dedicated easements, this strip between the two. So if this road goes away, which they use now, they will have access this way. Or they'll have access and they can go out any way they want. They come out.
And how will
Bill?
Bill to get out?
Bill is a different deal. He's going to have access through here at some point. That is if Knapp Road is abandoned. We don't know if that's ever going to happen. But Mr. Johnson and Ms. Nielsen both have dedicated easements right here, and that's already in place. Nothing that we're asking you to do today has anything to do with that.
Well,
All
it's
we're
a
trying to
tiny
do
one,
is
right.
take some of the existing lots and add additional use to that.
Right.
Well, I think she's just looking for comfort.
Yeah, when I see lot 13 totally going across where the public road is right now, that was my concern. Because
it does that on the plat already.
It already does.
Okay.
So
And
that's my
is,
concern.
So you see if they close 13, I mean, if they close Knapp Road, you'll have access to get into their development and come out on one of their exits. That's what he's showing now. You see that?
Yeah, if that's open, yes.
but you've got some other way for Bill to get out of, down at the bottom there?
Yes.
With Knapp, if Knapp Road goes away, which from the start, I think y'all talked about that's gonna be.
I think they met with them and is selling lot 13 to Bilton, but I didn't want to give up Knapp Road because that was part of the reason we love the property is that road coming up there. You come home from work and you're riding by the river. So that was what I loved is I'm all for the development. I have been for the development. I've never spoke against it. It's just, especially with the situation we are with my husband, we've got to be able to not come out on the top of Thompson. You can't get out there. It's cars come across that even at 50. You can't get out the top. I mean, you really have to get on it. The workers, I mean, they've seen us almost have 2 crashes there. It's very, very dangerous. So, and especially when you got a trailer behind you and you're trying to get hay or whatever, you can't go to the top. You've got to go out through the bottom. So that was my only concern. Like I said, I'm happy with the development. They've done a beautiful job with the apartments. And gosh knows we need more housing for Kerrville. I would like the restaurants down there, but I understand what they are. I mean, we've got a problem with the restaurants staying in business right now. So,
Thank you, ma'am.
thank you.
I did just want to address Commissioner Jones's question about Bilta's access. You'll notice along the back side of lot 13, or I guess the western side, if you will, there's a utility easement there that's kind of marked off by those dashed lines.
Mm-hmm.
And our plan is, frankly, we've negotiated with him, come to an agreement, then had to renegotiate, come to a new agreement, and we can't ever seem to get anything signed up with the Biltas. But that notwithstanding, we are providing through our current site planning process for the townhomes on lot 13 a space, if you will, for them to have a driveway and an easement coming back up to tie into the T-head at Teal Court as well. So that is how we are planning to address that. And again, as far as abandoning Knapp Road, that's not really what we're here to discuss tonight, but that's out of our hands at this point anyway. That's a city street, the city owns it, and so we have nothing to do with closing it down at this point. I know that the previous city manager and with some direction from council has looked at potentially closing that and expanding the river trail along that route someday. But I mean, that's someday is someday out in the future.
Yeah, sure. I hope I'm gone by then.
I will also state that, at some point, just as a practical matter, the city is going to have to probably tear out and rebuild that road if they don't decide to close it. So one way or another, something's going to have to happen with Knapp Road because it's deteriorating.
Knapp and James is
well,
a
yes,
disaster.
James may actually be worse.
Yeah,
in
it
some
is
ways.
a disaster.
But that, again,
Justin, in
that's not really,
reality, in reality here, if townhomes were not included in this, the development is still it still would impact, and there would still have to be some type of access anyway. So you're just adding something, but if you were gonna build restaurants there, it would not change their.
That's correct, yes, sir. And, frankly, I'd still like to build restaurants there. Our real estate broker, Bruce Strachey, is here, and he's got the listing on all those sites, and I can assure you that he wants us to build a restaurant there too and sell those off rather than do townhomes. But regardless, if we were not coming here asking y'all for permission to do townhomes on those lots as well, or really to have the option to do townhomes on those lots, then this wouldn't even be a discussion.
No, that's all right. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, built is difficult, so got that worked out.
We continue to try and work with our neighbors as best we can.
Good. Thank you.
So if there's no one else to speak, we'll close the public hearing. Are you understanding of where you're,
Sure,
okay.
yeah, I mean, all I'm saying is I've always been for it, and I understand why they're needing to go with townhomes. They've done a beautiful job on there. My concern beyond that is getting out Knapp and James Road. And I would love the city to fix the two streets. They're in desperate need of repair. And even with the townhomes, it's gonna be a beautiful road to go out there and then come all the way around James Road, which I think helps traffic also.
Okay, well, thank you. Closing the public hearing at 5:41. Any other questions or comments from the commissioners here? If there isn't anything, then we'll entertain a motion to the zoning change for.
Motion to change the zoning as presented.
Have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. So the zoning change is approved. Staff report?
The only thing really for the staff report is we've had a couple questions from commissioners specifically about the public notice process. State law requires for a zone change, we send notice to the property owners adjacent within 200 feet. You've seen the maps that we have showing that 200-foot buffer is based on the certified tax roll at the appraisal district. Letter goes to the owner based on that certified roll, or if we have newer or better updated information, of course we can send it to the new owner if we know about it, that sort. There are several cities across the state that use a larger notification area. I don't know that that's necessarily the direction the questions I've gotten from the commission were going, but my personal studies in the past, that's difficult to show benefit of larger notification areas based on the scale or impact of the property. Specific question I know Mr. Lipscomb brought up. Some cities actually require notice posted on the property. Some kind of, not flag, but sign posted on the property when there's a zone change or a variance or any public hearing process. Some cities, the city actually would go out and post the property. Other cities require the applicant to post the property and give them the proper criteria of what that sign has to show on it. But just wanted to open discussion with the commission. We can certainly do more research and get finer details. But just wanted to see if there was interest in the city pursuing additional notification. Again, state law requires notice by mail to the adjacent property owners, notice on our website, on our bulletin board out front of the public hearing, notice in the paper of the public hearing. But I think the question was more so the neighbors driving by and seeing it, having a sign in the front yard. Obviously, like today we had with the VanPatten properties, the tenants would see that versus the owner getting notification. So there's certainly different aspects of that and how that would notify the public. But just wanted to open dialogue. That was kind of the introduction. If I missed anything.
No, good. I would like to clarify that I really wasn't trying to create any more work for staff.
No, it's,
I really think the owner, the person seeking the change, should be responsible for putting a sign up according to city standards.
okay.
But again, like you just pointed out, the house on Aransas there, you know, they own a lot of properties, a lot of tenants. They never got official notice.
Right.
A sign in the yard, even somebody driving down the street that doesn't live there would see it. I think it's a plus. With the exception of the meeting we had today where we had a lot of people, we usually don't have an audience.
Right.
And that was the whole motive behind it, was to try to find some way to get more people involved.
Mhm.
So that's it.
Absolutely.
Anybody else have any comments?
I concur.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
I agree. I mean, go ahead.
I can make a comment. Russell Nempke, 515 Elm Street. So just what y'all are speaking to, I own 411 West Water Street as well.
Oh,
I have a long-term rental there. They have no clue what's going on right now.
Right.
I think the sign is great. And plus, like the Lewises were saying, they said they talked to a neighbor, they talked to whoever, so it puts the owners at a disadvantage too. They had no idea who these guys even were, even if they reached out to their neighbors.
Sure.
So I think the signs there get you in more contact with your neighbors. It helps out. I think that would be a great idea, really. For at least for the CUP for the short terms, because that's going to be a big thing coming up. I mean, y'all know that. It's coming.
Do we ever?
So we're not advocating not sending out letters to people that live within 200 feet. Not, my personal opinion is I don't think you need to expand your notice area. But I experienced this when I wasn't doing real estate. I think the idea that if you're looking for a change of zoning or a conditional use permit, you're looking for something that changes the neighborhood. It would be a good idea to have it posted on the property to announce what you're trying to do. And as much as I would like to say I'd like to make the owner responsible for it, if someone applies for a conditional use permit, is there a fee
There is.
involved?
Yes, there is.
Okay, so what would be the possibility of including in that fee, even if it was $10 more, whatever it is? This is going to include the cost of preparing and posting a sign on the property. Signs, I mean, can't be that expensive, and how many can, with the exception of these short-term rentals, how many times a year would you do it? But I think it's a great idea.
If we propose that to our code, showing that we are required to post that, or that the applicant's required to post, either way, that amendment would come through this as a change to the zoning code to the planning commission and the city council. We can include in that to city council a fee amendment to adjust the fee as necessary, if that's the case. We try to review our fees on a fairly regular basis. The point of the fee is to cover the staff time. So to your point,
I think it's a great idea, and I think that Russell makes a very good point that as things are going, we're looking at these short-term rental conditional use permits just about every time we meet. And I think if someone has to put a notice out there for all their neighbors to see, in addition to a letter, which, you know, all those tenants probably got those letters and probably threw them in the garbage can.
Well, they probably didn't get it. They went to the owner.
Well, that's true.
Yeah,
That's
goes to
true.
the property
So
That's where the sign would be beneficial.
And I would recommend that we direct you guys to come up with some type of documentation or whatever we need to do to present to make this change, and, you know, raise your, whatever the cost of the sign is, raise your conditional use permit fee by $25 or whatever it is, and let everyone know this is part of the process. We're going to mail the letters out to the within 200 feet property owners, and we're going to post a sign on your property of what you want to do. My opinion.
And the other question I have is, what's the duration of that sign? When does it go up, and how long does
It stays up until the conditional use permit comes before us, and then once this is done, then it goes away.
So there needs to be a maintenance factor. I mean, should that sign grow legs and walk away someday?
Well,
a replacement sign should be in place.
Yeah, we'll look at some
options.
some other cities do.
Okay.
We had a list of benchmark cities that we try to look and see kind of how do they handle similar things. Obviously, may not be just our list of cities. We'll just look statewide, what kind of the general standard is, and same thing if the sign goes away, what's the case, what's the process to renew it, and how often do we have to check on that?
Right.
From the time someone comes to you with a conditional use permit request,
Mhm.
the time you get that to the time it comes to us, what's the average time?
So our deadline for applications for September 2nd was last Friday. So we've got all of our applications in last Friday.
Basically 4 weeks.
Yep. We started processing this week. The notice goes in the paper 21 days prior to the hearing. State law minimum is 17. We shoot it out 21 days. The notices to the property owner, the letters get mailed out 10 days prior to the hearing. So somewhere between 10 and 17 days, I think, would be a reasonable timeline. That way it's out there and relevant. And maybe the shorter the time, less maintenance issues, but at least comparable to the letter. I would say no shorter than 10 days prior to the hearing.
Right.
Well, having had experience with political signs, personally,
Scar tissue.
it's not the fact that they're gonna need maintenance. They last a long time.
Forever.
Now, can they be removed? That's another.
Oh, my.
Well, if you guys could do that, it'd be great.
We'll definitely look into that and either report back with, if we've got a lot of question and ambiguity to what we find on our research, we'll bring it back. Otherwise, we'll bring back a proposal. We do have some other small zoning code updates coming in the fall. So if the commission's comfortable, we'll lump it in with that and bring it all together as a
It'd be
package.
great.
Okay.
Anything else? So we have our next meeting in September?
September, I think that's the 2nd.
When is the,
It is.
Yeah, okay.
the subdivision code or the zoning code hearing with the city council? What date is that?
Let me make sure I'm not lying to you. Right now, we have scheduled a workshop on the 17th, so no action. And September 14th will be public hearing and first reading. That's what we're scheduling right now.
So you're doing a city council workshop on the subdivision code?
Similar to what we did with the commission.
Okay.
Introducing what the code review committee has done, what planning commission has done, kind of showing those dates, those policy highlights, the change to the code highlights. And then of course, let them chew on that because it was no small feat. I don't know if Hayes has kept it under 80 pages, but we'll see.
Wait a minute, it was 75, wasn't it?
So Mike and I are actually gonna go through final draft next week, and get that ready to send to council for the workshop on the 17th. Again, the proposed schedule is September 14th and 28th. Depends on how that workshop goes.
Anything else? All right, we're adjourned.